So what community energy does, it brings it down to the local level where people can actually see solar panels going up on their local community building or a local school, and that starts a conversation, and that's really important. And when then people have the opportunity to invest in it as well, they're financially invested, they're emotionally invested, and it starts up all sorts of conversations. So that's why it's important. It's also really important right now, if you look actually what the government's own Committee on Climate Change is saying, have been saying for a very long time, is that we're only really going to go to net zero if we have everybody working together, and that is the communities, the local authorities, and the commercial sector. And it's quite hard to bring all those three together, but community energy is a really good way of doing that.
Go ahead. That makes a difference. So the community aspect is super strong. The other thing is that schools, from just looking at our perspective specifically, are amazing multipliers. Most people walk into school on a regular basis. They have children. They see the solar panels on a roof. That acts as yet another sort of incentivization or nudge to do something about it. But the challenge with schools, and this is where communities come in again, is that they're incredibly hard to get across the line. For a school to say yes, it requires a lot of people to say yes and only one person to say no. And it only requires one person to have heard, that solar panels never produce enough electricity to cover their own making, a myth from 30 years ago, for the project to stop. Or, oh, they don't work because they heard it from someone else and it stops. So those conversations showing people that it does work make a massive, massive difference and smooth the process. It can take 18 months to 2 years for a school to go ahead. And the ones that move fastest are often the ones where we're working with a local community energy group.
What batteries can do in both providing electricity to the grid when there's a shortage, but also drawing excess electricity from the grid when they need to do that as well, to keep the whole frequency stable and the grid stable. So that one's actually been running for quite a few years now. And then that led us to start investing in microgrids more locally. So this is our new build housing schemes where we wanted to integrate solar with other technologies, including battery storage. We set up an organization called the Microgrid Foundry, and that was to spur on the development of microgrids. So basically what a microgrid is, on a new build housing estate, rather than put a gas boiler into every house, we have solar panels on the roof. There's a heat pump for the hot water and the heating. They're very good and very energy efficient from the outset. And there is battery storage, but rather than having one in each house, there's one big battery on site. And there's sort of smart software involved that uses that generated electricity right across the site, stores it for later if required, and actually can also be used to keep the grid stable as well, a bit like our first pilot battery did. So we funded 2 of those schemes now, one in Bristol and one in Bridport in Dorset. And they're really interesting. They really are quite cutting edge. And it was our challenge to the big housing developers. We can do this. Why can't you? Why are you still building out houses that have virtually no solar on the roof and you're still putting gas boilers in?
At the moment, we believe that the impact of the education is up to 100 times greater than the direct impact from CO2. So we need to raise, we've got 7.5 megawatts of projects in our pipeline, plus whatever comes in over the next few months. And we're getting about 4 inquiries a day from schools. But yeah, we would need to raise 6 to 8 million this year, and not sure. I hope we can, otherwise we'll have to increase the interest rate and do less schools.
Our message so much now is that, yes, you're investing for a financial return, but also just as much for social return and an environmental. We see the share offers as much as a chance to tell people about community energy and about the wider energy picture generally as raising the money.
Why don't we go to a bank? And I think we could, but the benefit of involving wider society in those offers accelerates the pace of change too. And I think that's And also from a school's perspective, they kind of like the idea that it's parents and grandparents funding the system on their roof. It creates a sort of a bit of a community thing rather than a bank.
Please get the message out that renewables are cheaper than fossil fuels, and that this government keeps spending huge amounts of money on fossil fuel subsidies. That really is my biggest message, because the sooner we get that, the sooner the whole system is going to change.
To put solar on just all the schools in the UK is about 1.9 billion. The government hasn't got the money to do it. We know that because we're talking to them about it. They've got a couple of 100 million, which they're trying to allocate efficiently to top up the ones that don't work, which maybe they might use our tool to do that. But the key point is, if we are going to decarbonize, it's down to us individually to vote with our money. And renewables are a pretty safe place to put money. Not offering advice here, but as someone said, renewables are variable and predictable, not intermittent. It's true.